for anyone. It's
very healthy. Good balance.
I have a balcony. This is my garden.
Uh-huh.
And I love it. I really love it.
So, Advaita Acharya, okay, then he prays to the Goswamis next. Haha Swarup Sanatan Rupa Raghunath. Swarup refers to Swarup Damodar, the personal secretary of Lord Chaitanya. He was always with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and immediately arranged for whatever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted. Two personal attendants, Swarup Damodar and Govinda, were always constantly with Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur also prays to Swarup Damodar and then to the 6 Goswamis, the next disciples of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Bhatta Raghunath Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. These 6 Goswamis were directly instructed by Lord Chaitanya to spread this movement of Krishna consciousness. Narottam Das Thakur also prays for their mercy. After the 6 Goswamis, the next Acharya was Srinivasa Acharya. Actually, Narottam Das Thakur was in the disciplic succession after Srinivasa Acharya and was almost his contemporary. And Narottam Das's personal friend was Ramachandra Chakravarti. Therefore he prays, I always desire the company of Ramachandra. He desires a devotee's company. The whole process is that we should always pray for the mercy of the superior acharyas and keep company with pure devotees. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was asked back in the late 1960s, he asked Srila Prabhupada, how many pure devotees are in ISKCON? And Prabhupada said, well, how many devotees are in the movement? And he said, that's as many pure devotees as there are. So there's a very general definition for a pure devotee. Pure devotee is anyone who's trying to serve and surrender to Krishna and spiritual master. And then of course we know Kanishta Adhikari sees Krishna in the temple and gives all respects, but cannot discriminate very well between non-devotees and who's a devotee, who's innocent, and who's demoniac. And when relating to other devotees, they tend to get into fights and arguments, and they look for controversies and issues. And Kanishta Adhikari. Yeah, they don't know how to get along with other Vaishnavas. They can't discriminate very well. Madhyama Adhikari, middle level, worships the Lord in the temple, and then sees who's the advanced devotee and tries to receive mercy and serves the more advanced devotee, because mercy flows down, and sees a newer devotee and tries to facilitate that devotee and help that devotee, be kind to that devotee. And with equals, they make a friendship. Okay, how are we going to create not only a brahmachari ashram, but what about an ashram for the ladies at the temple? How are we going to accomplish that? How are we going to get more Sankirtan bands so that we can expand the book distribution? How are we going to get Prabhupada's books into the hands of the Queen of Denmark? Unless she's already got one. She got one.
a full set.
You got the full set?
Yeah, she got it 1 year on her birthday.
Wow.
And the prince also.
Was it 50 years or 60 years birthday?
Wow. Did you get a thank you note for that? Who was it? You who got the books?
I don't remember. Probably not. I don't remember so many years ago.
Very nice.
She didn't pay for them though, but there was a... But it's always a letter. If you send something to the Queen, you always get a letter from her. Maybe it's her secretary. Maybe.
And there's a president here or premier?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister?
She doesn't have. It's a her also.
Oh, okay.
No, to my knowledge, she's...
So she's next on the list? Gets in.
That's a good idea.
If she wins in the elections, coming elections.
Yeah.
I think we should wait till we get another one.
Yeah.
You should only.
Emil is not a great fan of Prime Minister.
Uttam Adhikari, topmost devotee, is free from the propensity to criticize anybody. If someone thinks they're really advanced, and they are really advanced, then they're thinking that everyone is serving Krishna better than me. That's a sign of an advanced devotee. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is that person, but he came down from Uttam Adhikari stage to Madhyam in order to preach. Because if you're an Uttam Adhikari, you're just seeing everything is Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's mercy, everyone's better than, serving Krishna better than I am. Everything, life is going on. So yeah, that's a symptom of the purest devotees. They're very careful about Vaishnava aparad. Very careful not to offend Krishna's devotees. Because it's hati mata, it's the elephant in the garden. What would it be like if an elephant entered into your garden?
Yeah, I would be very angry. There would be much elephant left.
And not much garden.
Become an exhibition.
In Mayapur they have the elephants going around. They come to the juice stand because they know they'll get some bananas there. And it creates a very nice atmosphere. But yeah, a mad elephant in the garden destroys everything. So that is that's something we want to guard against, is committing offenses to the devotees. And then so finally, after the 6th Goswami, the next Acharya was Srinivas, right? We mentioned him. So we should always pray for the mercy of the superior Acharyas and keep company with pure devotees. Then it will be easier for us to advance in Krishna consciousness and receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna. This is the sum and substance of this song, sung by Narottam Das Thakur. Such beautiful songs, so much meaning, so much to meditate on. So, I brought a couple of nectar books with me. Has anyone read this one yet? It's a story of how Brahmananda Prabhu became the first temple president in ISKCON. And one of Prabhupada's earliest disciples. Gee, I lost, someone took out, or maybe it was me. I had a marker in here. So this is like, Prabhupada Lilamrita, the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. And this is maybe what didn't make it in to the Lilamrita. Because you can only put in so much. So Brahmananda Prabhu, I went to visit him actually before I left. The Indian government was trying to send him out because his visa expired, but because of his health condition, not a good idea for him to move around. So far it seems Krishna's arranging for him to stay in Vrindavan.
Is he old now?
Yeah, I guess he'd be in his 70s by now. Yeah. Okay, a happening on the Lower East Side. That was a term used in the 1960s. It's a happening. It's like a cool thing that's going on. Check it out. It's a happening. Swamiji, because in the early days they called Srila Prabhupada Swamiji, witnessed his small movement coming together, growing, taking shape, with new boys and girls showing interest on an almost daily basis, just like today, just like all this week. It's going on. He knew that his own teacher's mission, the Gaudiya Math, was able to grow because of organizational structure and the appointment of official personnel. He saw this too, with the Ramakrishna mission in Calcutta. It seemed clear to him, for the movement to expand, it would need to adopt the formal configuration of an institution. The first temple president. One day, Srila Prabhupada, says he, turned to Brahmananda and said, now we want to make officers, president, secretary, and treasurer. So, who do you think should be elected? Brahmananda answered that Satsvarup would make a good secretary, and Gargamuni, Brahmananda's brother, would excel as treasurer. Sometimes Prabhupada would call Brahmananda's brother Gargamuni. He was very expert at raising funds, doing business. He further recommended Roy as president. No, said Swamiji. I want you to be president. What did this mean? Brahmananda had to oversee all temple affairs. He had to be mindful of the devotees' well-being. And he had to make sure that everything went on without interference. What a challenge it is to be temple president. I've been temple president in Montreal. I've been temple president in St. Louis while the devotees left for India. And I was temple president in Toronto Temple as well for a short time. And it's very ecstatic because you have a sense of being a servant of all the devotees in the community. At the same time, you have to deal with the headaches as well. And, try to facilitate the devotees in the best way possible. What do you find is the greatest challenge as being temple president, Prabhu, for you as a temple president? It sounds like there's a few challenges.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not always easy to satisfy everyone. That's one thing. Of course, all problems come to one. I mean, it's like
You would like the complaint department?
yeah, and problem-solving department always. I mean, this is not a big operation. It's not so bad.
Right.
It's our case was once asked. Actually, it was Manila who asked him. That there are so many problems here and there. Our case looked up and said, 10% he eats problems for breakfast, dinner, and for lunch and dinner. That's all he eats.
At what? Can you speak a little?
The temple president eats problems for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's all he eats. So yeah, so it's very purifying because you're absorbed.
Mm.
I remember whenever I've held that post, wow, it's like there's some resistance sometimes to having to go through it.
Engagement,
Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, just keep going. If you're going through different challenges, then we just have to keep going. But somehow or other, try to get devotees to think for themselves, because Prabhupada wanted independently thoughtful men and women. And he said also the temple president or temple authority is there to always give a fresh, new challenge to the devotees, to find a challenge for them so that they don't get complacent. So Lalita Prabhu was mentioning that in class about complacency, because when you're sattvic, then Om Shanti Shanti, Jai Jagadisha Hari, give me a house by the sea.
Yeah, it just seems to me like that it's also a fine balance from just acting independently and then being empowered to be allowed to do certain things. Mm-hmm. Because when we are in a small temple like we are, then and we are spread out, like the temple president doesn't live in the temple. Temple commander, like Madhushraya Prabhu has his services, Manira Prabhu his services, and they are like also little traveler living far away, Madhushraya Prabhu. So the rest of us, not the rest of us, but all of us together, it's also just important that we all get some responsibilities and able to do certain things without being, because we all just want things to flow, and but if we are a little afraid, in a way, I think you know what I mean, that we should not act independently, but we should also report. But it is like getting also some responsibility in order to help, assist. That I think that could help take some burden away.
That takes some maturity. Some maturity. From the devotees. With time, yeah. When Swamiji appointed me as temple president, I took it as a challenge, remembers Brahmananda. He inspired me to do it, even though I felt somewhat unworthy next to my elder and senior godbrothers. But I knew that he would bless me and teach me how to perform each task properly. I had full faith in his decision. Brahmananda reflects on his early duties as a president. So this is the first temple president of ISKCON. A typical day would begin around 7 in the morning with kirtan in class. Swamiji would teach us the Bhagavatam, carrying down the brown book. It had all the major Bhagavatam commentaries in it, and he would speak from that. Then one day he brought down a red book, a large, thick red book. And everybody was wondering, what is this red book? So he said, today we will read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then that became the standard for a while. I remember that there was a radiator there in the storefront. In the wintertime, around November, December, it gets cold. Whoever would sit next to the radiator, he would fall asleep. Everyone would know, don't sit too close to the radiator. But outside of that, life was not very complicated. As temple president, I merely had to assist Swamiji in every way I could, which usually amounted to minor chores. This was a simple time, even as the movement began to grow. Every day after morning services, there was a light breakfast. Kirtanananda, who had been trained by Swamiji, prepared opulent oatmeal for all the devotees. So Prabhupada would call Kirtanananda Kitchenananda, the name he gave him, because he was the first cook. If anyone wants to interrupt me because they have some thought comes to their head, please do so. If you have something that you want to add. Did you have something?
I mean, I was just thinking, now you mentioned Kirtanananda, I was just thinking like, how it's described also, the first cooking in ISKCON, like I remember, I think it's in Haishore's diary, you mentioned something like that they had just 5 or 7 spices, and like how, yeah.
Very simple.
Very simple.
Probably Shruti Kirtan was, because he was very much with Kirtananda and he was earlier.
And he was a cook too?
Shruti Kirtan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of became Kirtananda trained him actually.
Oh yes,
with
you're right.
With a specific idea that he could be a good servant of Prabhupada.
I don't want to sit on this big chair, but my legs are sore, so if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was just thinking too, but I didn't want to interrupt if it's more comfortable there.
I just don't like to sit and be looking down at people.
Everybody comes
Body's
forward.
becoming an old man, so
And then you could have 10
maybe I
years.
have any excuse. I need to maybe become more like Smara Hari. His body, I think, is a little older than mine. And he told me because he became a vegan that he's able to jump like a young boy. Thank you. So opulent oatmeal. Yeah, if you want to make opulent oatmeal, then you can put ginger in it. You can put dates in it. That's what they do in New Vrindavan. They have what they call oat water, which is oats and lots of dates, and they put some salt in it too. So Brahmananda, in his capacity as temple president, would tend to Swamiji's needs and make sure that all attendees were satisfied and had enough to eat. So that's one beautiful thing I see about ISKCON Copenhagen, Nava, Shiva Sangam. There always seems to be sufficient prasadam at this temple. I don't see anybody going hungry. No. Afterwards, Brahmananda would leave for work and return by 4 p.m. At each time he would bring Swamiji's mail to him and serve as his secretary, taking dictation for correspondence and discussing various subjects about the practical day-to-day concerns of the fledgling movement. Swamiji would then tell him to take prasadam in the next room, whereupon the young Brahmananda would dutifully and enthusiastically consume his lunch, a plate of prasadam that Kirtanananda had saved for him from earlier in the day. So Prabhupada said when the Sankirtan devotees go out, when they come back, in one place he actually said we should always have 20 plates of prasadam ready, and if the devotees don't eat it that day, then we can serve it out. We can serve the leftovers out the next day. That may have been a larger temple though, like New York or Los Angeles. But prasadam must always be there, and nobody should ever leave the temple without prasadam. That was one of Srila Prabhupada's expectations, or you could even say demands. No one should leave without prasadam, even if it's just a tiny, little biscuit or whatever. So, there were times when Swamiji would tell me to take prasadam, says Brahmananda. Excuse me. There were times when Swamiji would not tell me to take prasadam, said Brahmananda, and I would go hungry until evening. I later learned that this was indeed the etiquette. The disciple does not take prasadam until he is invited to do so by the Guru. Swamiji was happy that I intuitively knew this. What a sweet relationship. Just imagine, you and Prabhupada. After some time, but it is actually a sweet relationship, and it is us and Prabhupada. After some time, Brahmananda would also lead the kirtans in the park and oversee all expenditures, even to the point of signing checks, under Swamiji's direction, of course. He would settle disputes between devotees as well, and act as a bouncer whenever necessary. Before I left Vrindavan, Godbrother Shanka Prabhu, who wrote a cookbook, I don't know if you've seen it, I think it's called Recipes of India or something. Anyway, he was Prabhupada's flower boy, he said, in Mayapur. He was told by Prabhupada to plant flowers, and he also became a gardener and cook at ISKCON Radha Rasa Bihari Mandir in Mumbai, in Bombay. And I'm just trying to think, where am I going exactly? Oh yeah, bouncer. Yeah. So Shanka cooked for all the godbrothers and godsisters a nice little lunch. And Kavi Chandra Swami said to me, hey, why don't we go and visit Ramananda and his brother, because we were both leaving India, Krishna Balaram temple. So I wrote to Brahmananda, I said, would you like us to bring some... First I invited him and he said he couldn't come. I said, would you like me to bring some problem? He said, yeah, if you could bring some remnants to me, that would be very nice. And Kavi Chandra Swami then wrote to me and said, but don't bring him any sweets, because doctors said no sweets. So I wrote it back to him, I said, I'll bring you a plate of prasadam, but no sweets. And he said, tell me that to my face. So I saw the bouncer in him immediately come out. And I had that experience also when I was in Mayapur. My body was very ill with amoebic dysentery. It was 1977. It was the last time I saw Prabhupada. So I was going up to his room, and Brahmananda was standing there on the staircase, up, just blocking on the way up to Prabhupada's room. And he said, where do you think you're going? I said, I'm going up to see Srila Prabhupada. And he said, no, you're not. I said, why not? And he said, Prabhupada's busy. I said, yeah, but Hari Sari announced any disciple wants to see Prabhupada at 11 o'clock this morning, you can go and see him. I thought, wow, it's probably my last chance in this life. Personally, maybe I'll even go and sit in the room with Prabhupada. But then I was like afraid of that, because just imagine, if you could go and sit alone with Prabhupada in the room, what would you say to him? Like, you've come. Oh, so why have you come? What would you say? What would you say to Srila Prabhupada? How about you, Yolanithanand?
How can I serve you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's maybe the most relevant question. Anyone else? Something you'd like to say to Prabhupada if you could see him face to face? Yes?
We appreciate him so very much, his behavior and attitude.
Oh, he's taking care of us. And so, yes.
Thank you for your philosophy and your books and letters. which will inspire the world the next 10,000 years.
And Prabhupada said it's the duty of the older devotees to take care of the younger ones. So we're all getting to be older devotees. So we should try to help the newer members of the community. It's our duty to train them.
But why is it that we are not so qualified nowadays? Because it seems like this authority structure that there was in the past was like, the younger ones said just understood, and that the older ones said acted for their benefit or for they just shared, like whatever they knew. They might not have known so much more than I think that we may know today. But we do basically the same things. But we have been talking sometimes that what it is in the times, or is it because of us, or what is it? Why is it so difficult? Seems like for new people, to take a little bit good advice, because it is just meant to, like facilitate some services.
What do you think, Rohit? Do you think there's a difference between that and that?
Probably listen, I think. Of course, Prabhupada's presence makes a big difference, clearly, and Kali Yuga has progressed, but it was not a time without trouble when Prabhupada was here also.
Sure. That's an illusion to think that there was total cohesiveness.
Yeah.
There wasn't factions.
There were so many problems and scandals and going on. In the middle of everything else, of course, like a current of devotional service and like that, but problems along also.
Yeah, there's always false ego. False ego's been around for a long time.
There's sometimes a tendency to idealize the past, the good old days, but isn't it?
Yeah, Prabhupada once said the good old days.
But I mean, maybe what's your opinion? I mean, is it much different today than?
Well, one thing I remember when I joined in '75, you didn't lip off. I don't know if you use this word, lip off. You didn't talk back to your authority. You were put in place right away. You fall in line. You're in the army now. You're in Krishna's army. And there was a sense of like, there was a kind of regimentation that I remember. That it was a privilege for me to be living with the devotees. And I don't remember anyone ever getting heavy with me, but I saw sometimes if someone wanted to like make up their own thing or do their own thing, they were like, either you cooperate or go home to mama. It was really cut and dry. I'm not saying that's the best way to do things, but I remember I had a little fear sometimes seeing how if devotees were being arrogant or cocky, there was no time wasted. It's like, this is the way. And the temple president is empowered. He's Prabhupada's representative, and if you want the mercy of Prabhupada, you have to cooperate with him. Of course, we have different personalities, like Vasudev Prabhu in Fiji couldn't get along with Tamal Krishna Maharaj as his GBC, so Prabhupada made him the GBC himself of Fiji Island. So yeah, there's always going to be some personality conflict, otherwise it's a utopia to think we're not individuals, we're not going to get along. Sometimes an individual will work better with one person than with someone else. But yeah, I think we need to be a good judge of character and see if this person is too argumentative, then we be respectful of them, but we understand this is not somebody we can take under our wing and train up because they're too puffed up. They can't follow orders. Or maybe someone probably would maybe give that person their own, their own area, because they may have a